Yeah, Taoiseach, the violent scenes that we saw in the north over recent weeks were a worrying reminder of how the institutionalisation of sectarianism, can lead to these sectarian outbursts. And I think that if we are to try and actually challenge that and achieve the unity of this island and the end to partition, and undermine the very conscious sort of stirring up of sectarianism by forces like the DUP, we have to offer a better alternative, not just, joining together two somewhat dysfunctional states. And two areas, and I really want to emphasise this, and I mean this very sincerely, Taoiseach. We cannot hope to convince people in the north to become part of a united Ireland unless we have a state-of-the-art National Health Service, right? And our National Health Service is failing in many regards. It's two-tier. We have the majority of our student nurses and midwives want to leave the country because they're not paid, they're treated badly, and then they have to work in intolerable conditions. I've raised for the last number of weeks psychologists, young psychologists. I'm overwhelmed by the response I've got from them, Taoiseach. Living in poverty, trying to train to get into psychology, to deal with the mental health crisis, and they say it is an absolute nightmare. Those are just two examples, right? So we have to have a single-tier quality National Health Service, or else why would people in the north of a unionist tradition want to be part? And secondly, I'll just finish on this, is we have to separate church and state. The issue of the National Maternity Hospital being controlled by a Catholic religious order is absolutely unbelievable. How could people in the north want to be part of a health service like that?
In respect of Deputy Boyd Barrett's point in terms of the need to deal with sectarianism, I couldn't agree more. I think we need more substantive work, quite frankly, in terms of disadvantaged communities in Northern Ireland, particularly in terms of early school leaving, in terms of completion of second-level cycle of education amongst disadvantaged communities and young people in particular, that they would be enabled and empowered to progress to further education and to higher education. I think therein lies a critical policy area that needs far more attention from the Executive and from the Assembly and from the British and Irish governments collectively to do something fundamental in terms of giving people a brighter future, particularly young people who don't quite have that at the moment in terms of access to work or access to further education or the capacity to complete their second-level cycle. And that to me is critical. And in terms of a state-of-the-art National Health Service, one thing we should acknowledge in the context of this pandemic is that our health service has relatively speaking, stood up well in terms of both the quality of the personnel within our health service and also the planning and the work that the HSE did. We love to knock, we love to criticise, we seem at times very slow to acknowledge that the Irish Healthcare Service responded at different stages of the pandemic under a lot of pressure, but responded in a very, I think, positive, robust and resilient way. We need to build on that. We need to learn lessons from the pandemic. We need to embed the reforms that have happened during the pandemic and the higher investment that this government has put into health, unprecedented investment through the Winter Initiative, which has led to those reforms. We need to embed them now into the future of the health service, into the future.